Geeking out loud while you sneak around. See, I'm the one they speaking about. This key blast to throw you in the air and spin your feet around. We geeking out loud. I put the cartridge in the system and I'm hitting everybody in existence. Came to get it all. You see the writing on the wall. If I'm Naruto in the water, then I'm Sasuke before the fall. Luffy after.
Yo, what is up, geeks and nerds? This is Dr Geekly here, and welcome to Geeking Out Loud, where we talk about all things comics, movies, games, anime, all that geeky nerdy stuff. And with me is my guest host, Mark.
What's going on, everybody?
And we have a special guest host or guest with us today, a guest of honor, and we're gonna let him introduce himself. So
what's going on, guys? I'm Gui Agustini, aka Sunspot and Xmen 97. I'm really excited to be here chatting with Tyrell and Mark and with all of you guys listening, watching. Super stoked.
Yeah. So let's see. So first question.
We're gonna be geeking out.
Yes, we are. First,
you guys are gonna get me. I already know. You're gonna get me.
Hey, what's up? And first question of the day is, have you always been a fan of the X-Men animated series and the comics, movies?
Yes. I grew up watching the original series in the 90s. You know, I was born and raised in Brazil, so I watched it dubbed. But yeah, it was maybe one of the very first superhero animated cartoons, you know, I watched growing up. And I remember, you know, I loved it. I loved it a lot. Wolverine was by far my number one character. Together with Gambit. I always say I loved Gambit a lot, but I don't remember having his action figure. It was always Wolverine. And then, yes, the movies. And now, I mean, I actually didn't even know that. I didn't know about X-Men Evolution. And when I went back to Brazil in December for CCXP, which is the, you know, big convention in Brazil, is considered the biggest convention in the world, even bigger than San Diego in attendance. I was very surprised that a lot of the kids, or, you know, young adults now, they know Sunspot and because of X-Men Evolution, and it was so big in Brazil and South America. I was still there at the time, but I don't know why I didn't get to I didn't watch it, or I wasn't introduced to it that way. But yeah.
All right. What got you into the role to become Sunspot?
What?
What got you into the role of Sunspot? Like, what got you into taking the voice role?
The audition opportunity. Yeah, I mean, you know, we actors, you know, we're consistently auditioning for everything that we have a chance to, you know, through our representation. I had no idea it was X-Men 97. I've said this a few times. I think my entire cast at one point or another knew it was X-Men, but I did not. And so I just auditioned thinking it was, you know, an animation project. I had just started auditioning for a lot of animation and cartoons and stuff like that after I transitioned, moving from New York to LA. And so, yeah, I mean, of course, I was, not that I was more excited about the audition, it's just that it said it's Brazilian. They wanted a version with no accent if possible, so I spoke the way I speak, which I think I sound more American than anything. Now, but also with a Brazilian accent, so I put on a very thick accent. So the fact that he was Brazilian and they wanted the representation in that way obviously got me that extra level of excitement, or like the possibility, hey, of course I'm not the only one. There's so many Brazilians I know here and many more that I don't. So but yeah, you know, that was like an extra a touch of like possibility, you know, even more possibility on my side. But it was just the audition, you know, there was nothing else other than having, you know, a good representation that was able to get this and gift me the opportunity to lend my voice, and that way be heard by the team and eventually chosen, because I auditioned for it twice. So I don't know, in the span of 6 months. So I'm not sure, if the first read got through, or who knows. The casting process is always a mystery. There's so much that goes into it, and so lucky me.
Of course.
Let me ask you. You said they asked you to do the voice without an accent. I'm assuming that was the first time you did the audition. Did you know you was auditioning for the particular character of Sunspot being Roberto, or were they just trying to test your voice to see where you would fit?
Yeah, no, like I said, I had no idea it was X-Men. I didn't know it was Roberto. In fact, to my own shame, I didn't know Roberto really. I didn't know Sunspot, so I didn't grow up with the comics, and but I've never went back to find the sides of the audition or the email, because I have it somewhere saved. But I was under the impression that maybe it did say Roberto Da Casta. But last year, getting to know some of the team, the producers and stuff, they told me probably not, which is probably what it was. But anyway, so if it didn't say Roberto, then for sure I had no way of knowing. But yeah, I don't know. I guess they were testing, Roberto. Well, in this version, which I also did not know, his mother is Brazilian, but in the comics, we all know that his mother is American. So, you could say that the way he was brought up, he doesn't necessarily have to have an accent. I just did it that way, and when I was cast, I started my first recordings doing a very thick Brazilian accent because I wanted the representation that he's Brazilian, living in the U.S. and all this stuff. But even from the very first recording session, they wanted me to bring down my very thick Brazilian accent to the point where I just started speaking the way I do and adding, little nuances here and there. So you can, throughout the season, you could hear some moments with a more accented than others. I think it works for the specific moments where it happens anyway. But yeah, it became a mixture through the process,
All right.
And once you found out you were cast for the role, and since you didn't know that much about Sunspot, did you go back and do any research and find out a lot more about the character?
Yeah.
To bring it out more?
Absolutely. Like the moment that I got an email saying I was going to be a superhero, and when I read X-Men 97, I was obviously very excited. I didn't know X-Men 97 had been announced. I was very I was not part of the world of animation, or especially like the Comic-Con world, or the geek world, nerdy world, to be very fair. And so when they announced publicly, X-Men 97, all these things since 2020, I was never aware. So of course I then became aware of it all, and I was sent a link to the Marvel database, and that was my number one source of research. But I just went online. I went on Google. I went on YouTube. I watched and read everything I could find on Sunspot and Roberto, and that way I got as familiarized as possible with him. And then I was also sent by the production team, some digital versions of the New Mutants, so I got to read some of those. But then in the end, as I like to say, our script is always king and queen, and so whatever it's there on the page, the story that they wanted to tell and the way they wanted to tell is what I guide myself through, and obviously their guidance throughout the process it's just key. We had an incredible voice director, Meredith Lane, that we all worked with, who was amazing, and just the entire team. And so they have a broader vision of the entire project, right? So we're there trying things every time we're on the booth, and I find that it's very exciting. It's so fun because there's less pressure where you don't have to memorize things. You can repeat lines and give different intonations, give different variations, and they're so open to the collaboration, which is such a bliss.
Of course. Now, like, what do you hope, like, from what we've seen in season 1 of X-Men 97, it seems like we got a little bit of character development from Roberto. So, what do you hope will you get out of Sunspot later on?
Well, I hope it continues to be a key part, a key element of the team, as we saw in the last episode. I think he really solidifies himself as part of the team and fighting our villains, and so I think that was what we were all expecting and hoping for throughout the season, that he used his powers, that he became an X-Men. That's the journey we see in the first episode, where he's telling Jubilee that he doesn't know how to feel, how to be, and especially like to be an X-Men is it's something that's like he can't even fathom. And then boom, by the end, he is he
is an X-Men.
He's an X-Men, and he accepts who he is fully. So yeah, I just hope that we continue to see a good arc for Roberto, for Sunspot. Be part of the team, be part of like the great action sequences that we'll have, and some good scenes. That's all I can hope for, really.
Yeah, he like Sunspot's a big part of the X-Men mythology. Like, he was one of the first new mutants, and he's a big impact, a big piece of the puzzle of X-Men.
Yeah.
But I was wondering though, what are some memorable moments recording the series and joining the original cast of the original 90s animated series, X-Men?
Yeah, no, I got to meet Larry Houston and the Leewalds, which I had no idea who they were, really, especially back then, not being part of this world. And I grew up with tennis. I didn't grow up with the arts, so I had no idea. It was so awesome. And I've been in many panels with them last year, and they're so sweet. They're so incredible. So truly an honor. There's so many great moments, but I think the one that came to mind here is really the premiere, the private premiere we had here in Los Angeles, where I remember walking with my two friends on Hollywood Boulevard, and I saw the line of cosplayers. I had never seen something like that. I had never been to a Comic-Con, and so that to me was all new. And I didn't know it was going to be like a premiere fan event at the same time. So I was just like blown away by the whole thing. And then meeting for the first time a lot of my castmates, because we all recorded separately. So I never met anyone. I think a lot of us, some of them knew each other from other projects. But yeah, it was just so nice, to get to be together and then watch it in this big theater. We were the only ones that watched in a movie theater. Everybody's watching on their phones or at home, so we had that privilege to watch 3 episodes. And just the expressions of the fans, and for myself watching, I was so nervous, especially for myself, like the whole accent thing that I was telling you guys about. But just in general, it's just we actors, on camera or voice, we do our thing, and then you don't know how it's going to come out. You don't know how it's going to be cut, how it's going to be edited. And even through the process of doing ADR, for those who are listening and don't know what it is, we usually go in, we record our lines, and then we will go back and re-record those lines, not always, but most of the time, to then match exactly the animation. And that we call ADR, is replacing the voice. That happens in on-camera movies and TV live action as well. And even then, I remember like watching parts of it, and when I was doing it in the booth, and then I went to watch it, the premiere, and I remember it being a little different. So even the animation might change, and a lot of it I had no clue about, because we don't get all the scripts. I'm only there recording my lines. So everything that there's no Roberto, it was brand new to me. So it was very exciting. It was very exciting to watch. What a brilliance, an exceptional work all around of the animators, of the creative team. And then again, just being in a communal space with so many fans and so many people that love this world, love these characters. Like, it was wild. It was truly wild.
Let me ask you. So you've done acting in television before. You were on a Latin American Nickelodeon show called Grachi.
Yeah.
Now you're doing voice acting. How different is acting versus just voice acting? Is it similar or is it completely different?
Yeah, I like to say it's both. It's similar in the sense that I love the saying that acting is acting is acting. So it doesn't matter the medium. We're all trying to tell the truth and to relate either or both via our personal experiences and our imagination. But at the same time, it's very different because you don't have to memorize your lines. You can repeat lines over and over and over again, and so it's a very different medium. You are in the recording booth way less hours, sometimes for 30 minutes. Sure, you might have only one scene in a TV or film, but it's very, very rare you're going to be there for 30 minutes. So it's just very different. And so I don't. I think it's hard to compare. Just that we're all like when we're in the booth, the thing that maybe people get a little confused is that we're hearing the voice. We're gonna lend our voices, but it's a full body experience as if you're on camera. But you're only capturing the voice, right? And obviously, you can't be moving around because you have to be close to that mic. So there are some restrictions, but the commitment to the truth or to how broad that character or that project is have to be at 100% just as much as it is when you're on camera, So yeah, similarities and differences at the same time.
Gotcha. So you are trilingual. You speak English, Spanish, and Portuguese, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Which language is it easiest for you to act in, and which language do you have more challenges when it comes to acting?
That's a good question. So, I think today, I think the one that maybe would have more challenge would be Spanish. Though I do speak a lot of Spanish, but I think I speak more Spanish than I do Portuguese. But Portuguese is my native language. So the thing is like I've never acted. I've done a couple monologues and stuff, but I've never been on a project that I've acted fully in Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese. I've done 2 movies in Brazil. One I played an FBI agent, American, and the other one I was a Spaniard who spoke what we called Portuñol, which is a mixture of Portuguese and Spanish. So I think that like it's my native language. The way I express, though, certain expressions now are harder for me to come to mind at times. I would love to have that experience. I think that there's so much in me that it's from my first 19 years of age on this planet that comes from that background that I think not that necessarily would be easier, but it's just you can't recreate that, right? So but I'm so comfortable with English because I've been here for so long, and I started acting in Spanish really because I started in Venezuela right before I came to the US. That's where I discovered acting. Was never in Brazil, but that only happened for like 4 months, and then I arrived to the States with a tennis scholarship because I play tennis and I wanted to be a professional tennis player. And then I started my training, and it was all in English, and then English and Spanish when I moved to Miami. And that's why I did so many commercials. I was in a couple soaps, and then I did the Nickelodeon TV shows. But I also had to change my accent. Everything's been like, quote unquote, created or artificial in the sense like it's not native, right? It's learned, it's trained. My accent is trained, in Spanish and English, and so yeah. I think unless if I have to put on a different accent in Brazilian Portuguese, that might be hard. There's only I'm not the greatest with the variety of accents, Brazilian accents. So in my natural one, I think I can't say easier. It depends on the role, but yeah, I think I'd be more comfortable. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think that X-Men 97 does well in terms of representation, diversity, and particularly in regards to Sunspot's like heritage?
Oh, I mean, I'm so happy to be representing Brazil and Latin America in this way now. But I think the X-Men have always have always standed for representation, and we've seen that with the original show in the 90s, and throughout last year, through all the panels that I was a part of, and hearing Larry and the Lee Walds and all my castmates, it's just incredible how even back then in the 90s, like they were ahead of the curve, ahead of their time, and not only with the characters that they were creating, not only that Stan Lee and others have created, but that they were able to put on the screen, and then all the issues and challenges that they spoke about, right, and all the themes that are so apparent in the comics, and obviously translated to the TV show. So yeah, with Roberto is no different. It's such an honor for me to be the one chosen to give
Take
life
on the mantle.
Yeah, exactly, and then to give life to this version of the original TV show that haven't been inserted there, and so yeah, to continue the legacy of representation is just incredible. I've been so happily surprised by the the love and support I've gotten from the Latin community, through the cons I've been going and meeting people and online and everything. Is just fantastic, and I'm glad that that was a choice that they made, and to keep bringing that representation to Hollywood, to the US, really.
Now, do you hope, in your terms, that X-Men 97 gets their own animated movie in the future?
Oh, yeah, of course, I would love that. I think he has a lot going on. There's so much history, so many things that many storylines that he could be a part of, and so yeah, I mean, that'd be fantastic. I think it'll happen one day. I have big faith. Brazil is such a especially this year, it's I hate to use this word, but I feel I'm not finding a better word, but I'm thinking about trendy, but it's just because Hollywood's like that, unfortunately, right? It's like it's a trend, or it's just like but I think we're hot. Let's use that as better, we're like,
there
so
we
much
go.
Fire, like we're hot right now, and finally we it was about time. But yeah, we had our wonderful Fernanda Torres win the Golden Globes, and we got Best International Movie at the Oscars, and we have incredible talent in so many different TV shows and movies for the last couple of years, and so yeah, it's just fantastic.
All right.
Let me ask you this. While preparing for the role of Roberto, how much of yourself were you able to put into the character, and how much of yourself do you see in Roberto?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to put as much of me as possible, really, however I can relate, that'll be there. Obviously, there's so many circumstances that are foreign. Not obviously. A lot. Some are obvious because of just what the story is and who the character is, but others, I'm just not. I just didn't have those experiences. So, but I had, in a different way, similarities. So with the whole, the big moment with his mom, that it was so big for, the coming out like story, basically, is what people were talking so much about on the internet and stuff, and that they could relate to, right, in sharing to a parent that who they truly are. Like, I never had a moment like that, but I've said a couple times, I did have moments where I was very nervous, very afraid, to talk or to share something to my mom or to my dad. And in particular, my mom, actually, after the pandemic, I lost my dad. And so there were moments I could relate that way. So, yeah, I'm always trying to find one way or another to relate personally. And then the rest is the imagination, and it's in the moment, and it's the guidance that we have, and we just do our best.
Since you spoke about the importance of representation earlier, what is it like when you go out to conventions and you meet fans of Sunspot, or even fans of just you in particular, and they tell you how much these characters mean to them because they found representation, or they see themselves in the character that you have brought to life?
Yeah, that's been the greatest gift. I've been truly blown away. I had no idea the repercussion of these characters, and of this story. Again, I growing up, I watched it. It was super cool. It was awesome. But like, there's not. I mean, a couple directly to me, but more through some of my castmates, like Cal Dodd, who voices Wolverine, Lenore, that they've been doing it for so long, and they shared some like incredible stories, life changing stories, that is it's just incredible. But I had my share. I had a couple that like touched me so deeply, and I'm like, wow. It's like, talk about wanting to be part of something that can truly change people's lives. Like, I don't know. I don't know any of my friends or anybody that really have done it, or have been part of something that does that. And I think all of us have, or I believe, a deep desire to be part of something that's so meaningful and has so much uh, power in a positive way. At least that's how I like to think people do. I certainly do. And so, yeah, it's been such a joy. It's been such a, like I said, honor, and a big surprise, because I was not expecting that to happen from the fans, from people, and it's beautiful, beautiful. It's so touching.
Yeah. Now you said you read some of the X-Men comics, right? After you got the role.
Hmm.
What is some of your favorite ones with Sunspot in them storylines?
Well, I was sent some of the New Mutants, and then through the cons, I've been I read the X-Men '97 that Roberto's not there, and then I was gifted a couple from the Krakoa era, and
Mm-hmm.
the Roberto is heavily involved, and some of the red, is it Red X-Men?
Yeah.
X-Men Red, right? I read a couple of those too. Yeah, I mean, I think still, um, obviously I read the his first appearance in the New Mutants in 1982,
Mm-hmm.
that I got signed by Chris Claremont, who I met last year a couple times, which was awesome. Um, but yeah, I actually don't remember the specific issue of the New Mutants, but I always like to say that the one that I enjoy the most, that has one of my favorite scenes, is between Roberto and Deathbird, which she makes an appearance in the first season. And when I was
Mm-hmm.
asked last year, uh, if you had your way, like what kind of character or scene you would like to see
Mm-hmm.
in season two, it would be something like that, because it was so funny between the two of them. They have a love thing going on, and it's funny, and it's wild, and it's kind of crazy. um and so, yeah, I think that'd still be my pick out of everything I've
Okay.
read.
Yeah, I don't think Jubilee would be happy with you and Deathbird, but
I know.
yeah. But oh, were you gonna say something, Mark?
Oh, I was going to ask, since you grew up, you said something at the beginning. You grew up watching the original '92 series, but dubbed in Portuguese. what was that like? And then once you actually got to meet the actual voice actors, was it like a shock, like, hey, you actually look decent at all, or anything like that? Like, what that? I think that's fascinating because we deal with that in anime. Like, we grew up watching anime and Japanese and things like that. Then we American voice actors, and it's just kind of like a dichotomy of culture shocks. But what was that like for you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it was still exciting, and like I said, I think it was because it happened at that premiere, and I think the number one excitement was just to be with these people that are my castmates now, that I had researched a bit, who have done a lot of them, most of them, done so much in this animation world and space. Um, but the truth is like, up to that moment, I had not really listened to their voices, other than maybe going online, through the process to rewatch, because I did rewatch some of the summaries of the original. But yeah, I grew up with the and I don't even remember. I don't recall. Like, I would have to go and just play it to remember. But it was exciting to know. Oh my God, Lenore, you voice Rogue. Oh my God, and then, and then obviously Cal Dodd was the one that was because Wolverine was my favorite character growing up, and so it was like, oh my God, I was fanboying on Cal Dodd, and I think it was the first one I took a photo with. I asked for, just the two of us, and it was cool, and now we're all friends. It's pretty surreal,
All right. If you could have any superpower in the Marvel Universe, what would it be?
Oh, you stole my question.
He went first. Any superpower? Man. Well, I think the answer I usually give, which is true, and then I heard like recently, like, oh, that's boring if it's going to be like something you'd use in your personal life. But I don't know. I think it combines. I do like teletransportation. Being anywhere, in a hot second. So I love Nightcrawler because of that, and I think that would also be very useful for me in my life. But yeah.
Yeah,
useful as in you're gonna, take people and trap them into the alternate dimension that you travel through. And, no one knows, or just
that too.
Okay.
I'm down for it. Okay. No, like, I don't know. I just know. Like, what makes X-Men 97 the most exciting show for you to tell the fans or people that haven't even watched the show to get them into it?
I just think it's such a great show. It really is. I think that it was not meant just for kids. That's truly right. That's really what it is. And so there's just so many big themes in this. I mean, again, from the original, but especially this version. There's so many big themes and beautiful storylines, and it's very emotional. There's action packed. But look, everything is not for everybody, right? So there's people that are not into it, and it's fine. Like any project, it's just impossible. So if you're not into it, you're not into it. But yeah, if you like either the X-Men, or if you like superheroes, if you like animation, I think it's an incredible show to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely not for kids. I can tell you that much. Like, literally, once you see Wolverine stabbing some people, it's like, whoa, what that blood I see?
And it's also, but kids can also watch it unless they're really young. Then I don't know. Then it depends on the parents, because there's blood, there's death, there's
You said there's blood, there's death.
You know, is rated whatever it is rated. So, but some kids are okay with it, and some parents are okay with their kids watching it.
They
So,
choose violence.
choose violence. Yeah, yeah.
But I know you have a thing to get to in a little bit, so I'm gonna wrap this up in a little bit. But Mark, you have anything to say before we get into the Sunspot versus Human Torch death battle?
I am curious to know a little bit more about your experience on Garachi and just your experience in non-sci-fi geekdom type projects that you've worked on. Because researching you, you've done a lot of voice acting work. You've been a lot of background characters in different projects. And like you said, you've done movies in Brazil. You've done a lot of things. So I just curious, like, what is the more normal side of your career like versus something like X-Men 97, which is, like you said, a whole different side of this that you weren't even expecting to be a part of.
Sure. Yeah, it's a completely different world, a new world that I'm really in love with now. And again, very, very grateful, and I hope to continue to be part of, you know, and voice other characters, be part of other worlds, and continue this new journey that I'm so into. But my passion, I think I say it this now because it's what it is, will always be number one, being on camera, and I also direct, and so I really have a passion for directing and acting, and obviously ended up having to produce. So to tell stories that I really want to tell, that are really exciting to me, and to explore my own, uh, my own humanity, and my own sense of being in this world. But yeah, no, Grachi was so important to me because it was my first major character, though I was not I mean, I was a recurring. I had a recurring role on that show, so I wasn't like a series regular or anything. But yeah, it was. I kept getting called back again and again and again, and it kind of like it grew a little bit more, and it was, yeah, the longest at the time experience I had on set for the same show. And that was just, I don't know, maybe a year and a half after me, moving to Miami, and really starting to do my first professional on camera stuff. So it was super big. I was super excited. I remember being very nervous at the beginning, and then getting more, like it always happens, and you get more used to it, you get more confident, and then you just go, and then after that I was part of a different TV show for Nickelodeon called 1111, and that one I had my very first recurring role on a series, and he had his own name and he had his whole thing, and it was pretty cool as well. um, but my focus when I started acting, when I fell in love with acting, though I trained on the stage and I love the stage, and I hope to eventually go back to doing theater. I I classically trained in New York, and was heavily trained on the stage. I always wanted to be part of movies and TV shows, when I decided this was the path I wanted to do. And so, since becoming a filmmaker in that sense of telling stories, I've been creating short films for 10 years, and I hope to do my feature film soon, and be part of something that I make it happen from the ground up. I'll continue to do that forever until maybe that doesn't bring me passion or excitement, but I don't see that changing anytime soon. And then, like I said, I really hope that I continue to voice other characters and stuff, and keep climbing the ladder in that world as well. It would all be so I could create my own stories myself and direct and be on camera. So I would probably never change, like some of my castmates that I've met, and some people that I've met that started on either musical theater or training as actors to be on camera, and then switching to just being voice actors. I big respect, but that's not something I'm interested in or passionate about.
Okay.
With that said, what would be your dream project or your dream role that you would want to do for yourself, whether it is acting or just doing voice acting, or like you said, being a director?
Yeah, look, I have different kinds in a way. Like I do want to just I want to direct and act on a feature that I'm really proud of, and something independent. I have a story, a very personal story that it's not written yet. I actually wanted to do it in Brazil, and now I think I'm gonna have it in English. That could be one. That would be a big dream of mine, making that come true, or something else, But then also just being part of something of this magnitude that I did on the voice world in animation, but on camera. Being part of a really good TV show that changes my career in a different way, or a movie. That's another big dream of mine. And then in terms of like role, people have asked me several times, and I've always wanted to be a knight. I want to be something like medieval, and knight I think is number one. But then I also have said like a character like Zorro or Robin Hood, like horses and swords and something like that. I've always been passionate about those roles and those kinds of movies. And though I'm not super skilled with horses or sword fighting, but so then I was like, maybe that could happen in animation now. Maybe I could voice a medieval knight or something. That'd be amazing. I'd be open to doing that in animation. Yeah.
So before we get to the death battle, I'm going to ask, nostalgia and legacy. How do you think the legacy of the original X-Men series became as a whole and X-Men 97?
Say that again?
Nostalgia and legacy. Do you think that X-Men, the 90s series, left a legacy for itself?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think it paved the way, it took the incredible work, obviously, of the comics and what has been created for years, but put it on, on this new medium, or in a different medium, that it, made it so accessible to the entire world, and became such a hit, And I was fascinated to find out last year that, the creators, like Larry's talked about this, Lenore Zan, that like every year they just didn't know if they were going to continue to do it, because it was so uncertain. And just how they were able to make the first season is just always a miracle. These things that are like groundbreaking usually are miracles. They have so many obstacles. They didn't have faith or belief that could be a success. People would be interested, and then it did for one season, and then they renewed for a second season. And every year it was this incognito, which is normal, I guess, but especially back then. After that huge success, paved the way. We only have X-Men 97 because it was so successful, and back then we didn't have the internet, so people didn't know. And the legacy cast have been saying, like, since I think 2016, 17, 18, when they started doing these cons, that they realized how much impact they had. They also didn't know, because they weren't part of cons, and the internet, it wasn't, that, so they didn't know. They had so many fans. It's crazy. So yeah, if it wasn't for them, like, we wouldn't be here. That's what it is.
So, all right. You said you got a screening to get to, so let's get down to the death battle.
Let's do it.
Human Torch versus Sunspot. Whose side are you on first?
So I'm gonna post that on my Instagram. I'm curious to see what people will say, because I'm glad you mentioned that to me, Tyrell. So thank you, because I went online. I wanted to check it out, what people were saying. I watched some videos. I prepared myself, but regardless, without doing it, I will obviously partner up with my boy Roberto Sunspot. There's no way. That's unquestionable.
Well, so Sunspot, he is a 50. Like, I've looked into him too. He is a 50 tonner. Like, he can lift up to 50 tons. His blasts are like 20 tons.
And let me tell you, look, because I don't play the game. I don't play the video games anymore. I really have learned everything I know is I've learned through the cons and people who are
Yeah.
really into it. But I know like the mobile game that they have, like they tell me Sunspot is such a one of the strongest characters. And then, at one point throughout the comic history, I think he was Omega level and or close to it, and so everybody says that he's really strong and is maybe one of the most powerful X-Men out there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll take that to the grave with so I will obviously vote for him, and I think he will beat the Human Torch. But hopefully they become. It'd be cool to see them.
Be homies. Be flame homies.
Flame homies, man. But then also there's Sunburn. There's so many others. Like not many, but there's a few others. And
Yeah, it's I think that, and this is what I think. I think that Human Torch is faster, and
Yeah,
he
I did
can put
read
out more of an output, maximum output. But Roberto, he'll just absorb it all. Like he absorbs heat, he absorbs fire. He might be able to absorb all of what Human Torch is breaking out.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So I don't. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, can they be affected by each other? I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I think it just comes down to hand-to-hand combat and duking it out. And I think Roberto, since he's a 50-tonner and he's strong, and from the games that you heard, he probably would KO him.
I think so.
What do you think, Mark?
Because I knew the both of y'all would go with Sunspot, so I was trying to find a way to make Johnny Storm seem comparable, like he could beat him. But there's no way.
You couldn't find a way.
Head-to-head that the Human Torch is coming out on top. Human Torch gets stylistic points. He gets cool points.
Yeah.
He gets the first human pyro award or whatever, but like any other pyromancer or pyrokinetic or anyone with fire powers in the Marvel universe can easily take out Human Torch. Like I'm so reminded of that
Deadpool 3.
Deadpool Wolverine.
Yeah, I was about
pyro
to,
comes up and just sucks his power away. And I'm like, you gosh darn useless. Like there's no point in that.
Like he talked that big game, and I was like hyped up when I watched the Deadpool 3 in theaters. I was like, heck yeah, hell yeah, Chris Evans is coming on top, and then all of a sudden, whoop, and you see like a little.
So because of that scene alone, I just gotta go with Sunspot because like you can't come back from that.
Yeah, you after you see that, like if we didn't see Deadpool 3, it might be different, but. But now that we've seen that, we know how it's going to go in a heartbeat. But,
right.
Correct. I like it.
But no, thank you so much for coming on our show and geeking out with us.
No, thank you guys. Thanks, Tyrell. Thanks, Mark. It was a pleasure. I'm glad it worked out. And thanks to the listeners and to the viewers and for all the support and love. And I so appreciate it.
Of course.
Before you go, do you have anything coming up that you want to promote? Any project coming up that you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I'll just mention like the screening that Tyrell was talking about. It was a short film that I directed in Brazil in Rio a couple of years ago, and it's screening tonight at the Beverly Hills Film Festival, which is exciting. I've never been at that festival, and it's happens at the Chinese Theater here in Los Angeles. It's pretty cool. I have another short that I'm premiering, a dramedy that's premiering in New York at the New York Cinefest, which I'm excited about. It's cute. It's really cute, and I'm gonna be going to New York between two cons and attending, which I'm really excited to see a lot of my friends and see it on the big screen and all that. And then I'm finishing another short film, which I think is my best work all around as a director, actor, and it's a beautiful story, very unique. It's called West Texas Home, and I am, have big hopes and faith that it'll be my ticket to bigger festivals that I haven't been a part of yet. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm super proud. Incredible team I was able to have, and I think we're just a couple of weeks or maybe a week away from like calling it final cut. I have the poster getting created. I did create a little teaser yesterday, talking to my team to see if they approve it, and we can have that as final. And yeah, soon I'll be sharing, poster and trailers and all that, and hopefully, in a few months, some good news about the festivals. We're going for the major ones, so
Yeah.
it's it might take a while until we actually announce the premiere. Could be 2026 most likely, but hopefully it's one of the next level festivals. But yeah, that's what I have going on. Auditioning as always. That's just a regular day. Hope for a new project to come around.
Well, have faith and everything, and yeah, we are looking forward to you at Sunspot on season 2 of X-Men '97.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, stay tuned for that, because obviously that's coming in hot in next year.
Yeah, of course. All right, man, we'll let you get to that screening, and you take it easy, okay?
Thank you so much. You guys too. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
See you next time. Cheers. There we go.